Hello, thanks for tuning into my channel. In this video, my goal is to share with you some of the things I've learned over time as an immigrant in the United States of America. My topic focuses more on immigrants and how you can get yourself established as soon as possible when you arrive in a nation like the United States of America. I have to be honest with you, the United States has been a very huge part of my life in making me who I am today, and I'm grateful for that and the opportunities that are available to me. I grew up in Nigeria and I spent, I would say, about 20 years of my life in Nigeria, and the things I've learned over there definitely helps me here in the United States. But there's one issue, and the issue is that we have a lot of resources, we have the technology, we have the knowledge. However, we lack the ability to access most of these things that are easily accessible in a place like the United States of America. And one of the things that I'll mention is stocks, or investing in the stock market. Now, when I moved over here, I already knew about stocks. In fact, I actually have stocks with like Zenith Bank. I bought my first stocks when I was, I believe, 16. I did it the old way. When I bought it in Nigeria, I remember I went in the bank. I was 16 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that, well, I had some money. I'm going to go buy a stock of Zenith Bank. Not a stock, I think it's few. I can't remember exactly what number of shares. And in fact, that just reminded me of something interesting, because I was getting all the dividends to that stocks before I left the country. And ever since I've left, I don't know what is really happening to it right now. And I know that my next visit to Nigeria will really be to know why or where my dividends are going to, and I hope they're being reinvested, because that's what I would hope that they're doing, that they're reinvesting the dividends for me. Back to the story. I got my first stocks at 16, so I knew about how stocks work, buying a share, holding a share for so long, and I hope that it's gonna increase in value and someday maybe you become a millionaire. Yeah, something like that. So anyway, when I came to the United States, I realized that, wow, it is so easy to buy a stock and monitor it and trade it. And you have full control up to an extent of how you spend and invest. Whereas in Nigeria, you do not have the control. You do not have access to the things, the tools, and the information. Again, I left it 10 years ago, so maybe things have really changed, and I hope things have really changed. But from my knowledge and from the people that I keep up with in Nigeria, I don't think much has really changed in that aspect. Coming here with the knowledge of what stocks can do for you, I was willing to learn about investing in stocks, and upon arrival, that's one of the things I started doing. But I had one other problem. I didn't have the money to invest because I was obviously a student. I was in training, and I was going through school, and I was broke, and I only had enough money just to survive. That really held me back, and that's why I wish I had done some of these things that I'm going to share with you in this video. So number one, establishing my credit was one of the first things I would have done, or I should have done, upon arrival. Now, when I came here, I always held on to the opinion that you do not need a credit card. You do not need to have a loan. You do not need to, because again, I had the mentality of being an African or a Nigerian where you have to, carry your saved up money to buy something outright. And that's what I believe in. And that's really good. Mind you, it's not a bad thing. But in a country where your ability to afford something is really judged by your credit, and your credit is judged by how well you're able to pay your loans, if that makes sense, how well you're able to pay off your debt. It's a very weird mindset, but it's a system that works. Okay, you want to buy a house, you're gonna need a good credit. You want to buy a car on loan, you're gonna need a good credit. Now, am I gonna encourage you to go buy something on credit just because you want to establish your credit? Well, if you can afford it and you have the cash, I would say go ahead and do that, because remember, if you can afford to buy a house in cash, you don't need the credit to do that. But majority of us, or majority of people, cannot do that. So you have to go by getting a loan. And in order to get a loan for a house, for example, you need to have a good credit. So anyway, one of the things I would have done was to establish my credit as soon as possible. And there's a video that I shared in my channel that talks about how you can get that done. So I'm going to move to the next thing. Number two, one of the things I would have done differently, if I could at the time, was to buy a house or an apartment or a condo, anything, any property that I could have bought. Because I realized For the first 5 years of my time here, I was paying rent, I was sharing the place, which would have been great because remember, I was in a situation where I was renting, I had roommates, I had enough people to pay off the mortgage. So if you're a student and you can afford to put out, $10,000, $15,000 down on a property, I would say go ahead and do it now and rent the place out to your schoolmates because you have access to all these people that will pay you consistently, like students. Obviously, you don't want to be the landlord that become friends and you don't get to collect your money, but I'm talking about real people that will pay you because you have access to renters around you as a student. So you might as well buy a place, rent it out to people, and let them pay you. And if you do that for the next 4 years or 5 years of your time while you are there, first of all, you'd have paid down a lot of that mortgage. One, secondly, the property will probably go up in value. So even if you choose to sell after 5 years, you'll still be able to make a lot of money out. Remember, you only stayed there paying probably half or even less of the mortgage. So it's a smart way of thinking, which I would have done differently. So that's my number 2 tip for you. Right place, a property, a condo, whatever property, a 2-bed, a 3-bed, buy it, rent most of the rooms out, have roommates in your room. Remember, you're a student anyway. That was what I was when I came here. So I would have done that. My 3rd tip for you is to get investing. Start investing right away in the stock market. Like there's Robinhood, there's Fidelity, there's Vanguard, there's all these brokerage firms are Webull, there's Stash, there's so many of them nowadays. And I would encourage anyone at a young age to start investing as early as possible because of compound interest. Well, so what is compound interest? Well, compound interest is basically making money on your money. So when you buy, if you have $100 and that $100 goes up by 10%, well, that means by next year you have $110. Now, if that goes up by 10% again, well, now remember, you're not making $10 anymore. You'll be making $11, on your money, if that makes sense. So the point is the money compounds over time, which is the sweet deal of investing. All right. So my 3rd tip for you, start investing as soon as possible. I know you might be scared, you might be worried about losing money. I was there, but remember, as long as you do your due diligence, don't make it complicated. Start small and gradually build on it. So that's my 3rd tip for you. Get going with that and start investing. My last tip for you that I will share in this video is to avoid unnecessary debt. Unnecessary debt. And I say that one more time, all right? Why? Because a lot of us will find ourselves in situations where we want to impress our friends, we want to impress other people, want to buy the latest phones. I don't have the latest phone. That doesn't mean that you have to adopt my beliefs or my way of life. But my point is, why buy things that you don't really need? Why buy things that you don't necessarily need to have? For example, you want to buy the latest car. You might be able to afford that, but remember that car you're buying now will lose its value. If your goal is to build and increase your net worth and build wealth, then one of the things you want to do definitely is to spend your money or put your money into things that go up in value. Now, that's one of the things you're probably doing is your education. But one of the other things you can also do is, like I said, rental properties, renting out equipment, selling things online. If that's the kind of person you are, you might as well go into those things early instead of spending your money on things like a phone that next year they come up with a new one and that becomes old anyway, or you buy the latest car that is going to lose its value. Now again, if you have all the money in the world to do all those things, then yeah, go ahead and do it. You can only do one or the other. I would say do the things that will help you set your future, all right, that will build you up for the future and set you up for life, so that you can do these other things that brings you joy. Because remember, if you do the things now that brings you joy and you do not build your future, you end up paying the price along the line. So my 4 tips for you, again, as a quick recap in this video, is number 1, get yourself set up with a good credit score, a good credit rating. Secondly is to if you can buy a place or rent or buy a condo, an apartment, a unit, whatever you can buy as to rent out to people, go ahead and do that especially while you live in it, because that way you are sharing the cost of utilities and also the mortgage. The third tip for you in this video is to obviously spend wisely. Make sure you do not spend on things that do not go up in value as much as you can, and invest in the stock market as early as possible. Like if you look at the S&P 500, it keeps making new highs, and one thing I believe is that the stock market, it's gonna drop because there's always a correction because the economic cycle. But the point is, in the long run, there's gonna be an upward trend. In the long run, it will keep going higher. So keep that in mind, because once you lose the opportunity to invest today, the opportunity is gone. Tomorrow presents a new day. You don't know what tomorrow holds. Today is what we know. We know based on the fact that history has repeated itself. The economy goes up and goes down. Yes, that we know. In the long run, over the past years and centuries, the stock market has been going up, at least an average return of about 7%. So why not take advantage of that and start investing now? I hope you liked this video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you will subscribe, hit the like button, and share with people that might find this video interesting as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time in one of my videos.